A very warm welcome back to the channel. Do be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, it would certainly mean a lot. In today's updates, there's coverage on Korean Air's planned takeover of Asiana Airlines, taking a very important step, then moving over to Qatar Airways, who are saying goodbye to an aircraft type, and KLM unveiling an updated livery. But let's begin with the feature story, that being the EU has officially approved Korean Air's plan to take over Asiana Airlines, which is another positive step for the two airlines, hopefully to complete the deal sooner rather than later. A decision followed an in-depth investigation into the two airlines and the proposed implications of a deal going through. Given that Korean Air is the largest airline in South Korea and Asiana is the second largest, you can imagine that much did indeed need to be deliberated. The EU initially said that it had gathered substantial feedback from market participants and key stakeholders. As a result of this feedback, several concerns were outlined, including harming competition for air cargo transport services between Europe and South Korea. Additionally, the focus was on the negative implications of competition to offer passenger air transportation routes between Seoul and European destinations of Barcelona, Paris, Frankfurt, and Rome, but obviously not to be limited to just these four locations. When merging the two South Korean airlines, it was viewed that they would become the largest carrier on the aforementioned routes. What would this do? Well, it would likely hurt customers with a lack of overall competition. The EU lastly cited potential price increases too, which would then hurt customers even further. As part of the investigation and completion of its due diligence, the Commission outlined several proposed remedies to address the initial concerns. First, the EU says that Korean Air will divest the Asiana cargo business, including freighter aircraft, slots, traffic rights, and crew, among other crucial areas. Additionally, for passenger commitments, Korean Air will make the necessary assets available to rival airline T-Way to enable it to start flight operations on the four overlapping routes. This will include assets such as slots and traffic rights. The EU says that they'll put an independent trustee on the case to monitor their implementation following their review of this. Based on the proposed remedies, the Commission believes the concluded transaction would no longer have further competition concerns, which is really the underlying thing to take notice here. Ultimately, while there have been again proposed remedies for the pair, it is a step in the right direction for Korean and Asiana, instead of, say, an outright rejection, which would have quickly impacted the two airlines' plans at coming together. The consensus is the pair are willing to abide by the comments from the EU and will continue to move ahead. However, it still notably awaits clearance from the United States, which has taken a substantial period to move forward with, and there is absolutely no timeline on when a verdict of this could occur. For airlines coming together, we know that it is one of the most talked about and focused in on points in our aviation industry. There has been a substantial amount of consolidation and likely to be more expected per key analysts and insiders. And for Korean Air and Asiana forming what is truly to be a mega airline, no doubt there must be a lot of deliberation from key regulators and overseers into the industry to ensure that there is no negative implications onto customers and, of course, competitor airlines. Remember, competition breeds a healthy industry. On to the next story, and that sits with UPS, confirming it has acquired 2 additional Boeing 747-8 freighters, thus boosting its overall freight fleet with these jumbo jets. You might think to yourself, with production having ceased for the 747-8 program, how on earth have they done this? Well, the only way to really acquire additional units is through customers who had previously operated the type. UPS says in their earnings call that the 747-8 freighters that it acquired are coming from Qatar Airways, which, while not confirmed by the Doha-based company, are now being reflected in fleet data to be removed, or at least on the way out. Qatar Airways previously delivered 2 Boeing 747-8Fs were registered as A7BGA and A7BGB. These joined the fleet in 2017. While Qatar says they still have 1 unit to their name, it becomes, like I said, increasingly evident through fleet data status cites that both of these aircraft, while registered to Qatar, are slated to head towards UPS, with one having been parked for a period now already. Away from the 747-8F, Qatar's cargo fleet is really dominated by the 777F, which has proved essential to the company's broader cargo operations. And when you look ahead into the future, we know the company will be relying on the 777-8F based off the upcoming 777X. Really moving away from the 747 shouldn't necessarily be deemed as a shock. We've had on numerous occasions now several executives speak at conferences and more, and made it very clear that ideally they would move towards the 777F. Increasing UPS's portfolio of Boeing 747s also shouldn't necessarily come as a shock either. They are trying their best to align with a key strategy of reducing fleet age and improving efficiency. Adding these 747-8Fs should allow them to do this by also allowing the removal of older MD-11 freighters. While fleet data indicates there are 32 of these in service, staggeringly these average an age of 29.5 years, thus making them among the oldest in the entire fleet. On to the final story of today, and that is KLM, who have unveiled an updated livery which is set to debut on its first Airbus A321neo, which is due in the next few months. In the revised livery, a dark line separating the KLM blue and the white swoops will extend further down, rendering the nose dome completely blue. While a critical design choice, it does additionally allow for flexibility if the nose dome does need to be replaced as a new one, thus not disrupting the blue markings which are labelled as signature. KLM was hardly going to overhaul its livery completely for the arrival of the A321neo. It is a pretty iconic scheme. The airline always wants to ensure that its distinctive features are intact. However, ever so slight updates are essential for the company to continue moving forward while retaining the core principles of its identity. A black outline will also be added around the cockpit windows, something many have become very accustomed to in recent years with the next generation Airbus aircraft offerings, and I must say I do quite like this. KLM is excited to welcome this aircraft into its fleet. The first of around 30 A321neos are expected to commence operations in August of this year, with Copenhagen, Berlin, and Stockholm being unveiled as the initial destinations that will make up the network with this aircraft. The announcement of these destinations was made before the livery reveal. According to the carrier, the A321neos will not only have wider seats, but larger tray tables and spacious luggage bins, all part of trying to make the travelling experience aboard KLM aircraft more enjoyable and increasing those customer satisfaction levels. That is going to conclude today's aviation news recap. If you have any thoughts, you're more than welcome to drop them down below in the comments. Thank you very much for your support here on the channel. It certainly does mean a lot. Do take care and also be safe, and I'll see you next time for more coverage on the aviation industry.
And we'll fly.